Hey, hello ladies and gentlemen. So today we are going to be looking at two kind of different techniques. The first technique that we are going to talk about is the general structure of this project. So we're going to be creating what's called a tripod vessel. A tripod vessel is a three-legged structure that is made from just one single slab of clay. So this, for example, is a tripod vessel. It has 3 feet, 1, 2, 3. It is made from a single slab of clay. This particular one has a lid that goes with it. For this project, we're not going to be creating a lid. If you really want to, there'll be a video linked from another art teacher that shows you how to create this lid in this structure. So this is one of my examples of a tripod vessel. Again, it starts with a single rectangular slab of clay and then it turns into this lovely curvy vessel here. Okay. The other technique that we're going to be talking about involves mixing some red and some white clay. So I have an example that has not yet been fired that uses the tripod structure and mixes this red and white clay in a way that I like to compare to Damascus steel. So Damascus steel is a way of creating metal that layers different types of metals, and so you get this awesome kind of spotted texture of color that pops through when it's finished. We're going to be doing something very similar with that clay. We'll also look at an alternative if this isn't something that you want to create and layering that clay. We'll look at another way of kind of creating it. When we glaze these things, these tripod 3-foot structures, okay, when we glaze them, we are going to use clear glaze so that these colors pop. When we use this method and use that clear glaze, this is kind of the shape, the colors that pop through. So this is what that Damascus method looks like when we just use clear glaze. No other glaze was used in this, just straight up clear to create all of these different popping colors. We're going to start by rolling out a slab of red and rolling out a slab of white. So I have red clay, I have white clay. This is on a brown mat. It's not really that dirty. I know it looks like it's the same color as the clay, but it's not. So I am going to have some rolling pins that are already red. When you guys are rolling this out, I want you to try and use a red rolling pin just because it's going to make your life a lot easier if we can kind of contain and separate the red and the white. So my goal right now is just to kind of roll this flat. It doesn't have to be any particular shape just yet. I'm just going to roll it flat. And then when I roll out my white clay, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I prefer to go a little bit longer with my slabs, just because you'll see the next step, it's a little easier. Oh, my mat is already ripping. It's been cut from my last example that I made. So I've got my red slab rolled out. I'm going to try and roll the white clay to be about the same shape and size. That's my goal. It's okay if it's not the same thickness right now, but I want to aim for about the same shape and size. So I've got my white rolling pin here. And it's okay if your white clay got a little dirty from your hands. You'll see in later steps it doesn't really matter that much. We're going to clean it up in the very end anyways. So I'm trying to go for same size, same shape, roughly. I'm going to stack these two slabs that I just rolled out. So I'm going to put the white on top of the red. I'm kind of going to press down as I go to kind of eliminate some air bubbles, okay? Now, if you are familiar with Damascus or if you've ever made a croissant, this next series of steps should kind of make sense. I'm going to take these two slabs, I'm going to cut them in half and then stack them again and roll it out more. So right now I have 2 layers of clay. After my next step, I'll have 4 layers of clay. My goal with this is to have a slab of clay that has multiple layers, lots and lots of layers, and is about 12 inches by about 7 inches. If I can get it close to that, that's my goal. I started with a good handful of each clay color, so I should be able to get that. I'm going to try and get this to be a little more rectangular, so as I'm rolling these out, I'm going to leave some thickness on the top and some thickness on the bottom down here, and then I'll roll the other way to get it to be a little more rectangular. So we're going to repeat this process. Okay, so from here, I am going to cut my 12 by 7 roughly inch rectangle. If you can't get it 12 by 7, it's not a big deal. Do the best you can. I'm trying to get a 12 inch by 7 inch rectangle. That's my goal. If it is more like 11 by 5, that's fine. Just do the best you can. Try and get it as close to that 12 by 7 inches. Okay? When we cut into this, you can really see how many layers there are in there. Okay? I'm going to save all of my scraps. So don't smush your scraps yet. Just kind of stack them up for right now, and we will come back to it. As far as the thickness that we're going for, we want to get close to those wooden guides. So if you've got these in your basket, we want to be pretty close to that. I'm a little bit thicker than it right now. You can see there, but that's okay. So again, stacking up my scraps. So mine is going to be about 5.5 by 11.5. So mine's a little small, but that's okay. So I have my stack of scraps here. I'll be able to use this later on, so don't get rid of it. Just keep it stacked up nice and neat, okay? Now this is very similar to the mugs, if you remember doing the mugs. I'm going to use my angle cutter. I'm going to use the 60-degree side of this cutter. Make sure my wire is nice and tight and nice and clean. I'm going to swipe down one side. It starts to reveal some of that layering, which looks awesome. And then I'll flip it and swipe down the other side. You're probably thinking, this doesn't look very cool yet. It will, I promise. We trust the process. And you can see all of those awesome layers. Yes, we love it. Okay. So we are going to wrap this into a cylindrical shape. Okay. So I'm going to get my scratch tool ready. I'm going to go ahead and scratch up the sides here. Now it is your choice whether you use red slip or white slip. If you choose to use white slip, obviously that's made for you. If you choose to use red slip, just make a little bowl out of red clay, like with a divot the size of your thumb. Put some water in it and swish a paintbrush around in it and it'll be fine. So I have my scored up sides here. I'm gonna take this slab, and you can choose. I have an option of making it a little more red on the outside or an option of making it a little more white on the outside. I have this one that has more red clay, so I'm going to try one with some more white clay and see if I like that better. So I'm going to wrap this so that this white side is on the outside. And again, ignore the fact that it's a little dirty. It'll get cleaned up in the end very quickly. So I'm going to stand it up with the seam away from me, okay? I'm going to put a little curl into it, a little curve into it, add my slip, and overlap it. I've got some slip in a little squirt bottle here, so I'm just going to use that. I needed more, but that's okay for the sake of my demo. I'm going to overlap, apply some pressure, and clean up this seam. I have a cylinder here. I'm going to make sure it's nice and round again, the top and bottom. My inside, I smoothed out that seam. It's still there a little bit. Let me get that. Inside, I smoothed out the seam. Outside, I smoothed it out. It got a little muddy. It's okay. We'll clean it up in the end. I'm going to take a second to just get this thing back to round. So I'm going to gently, carefully press it back to round. Now, we are trying to create this three-legged tripod structure. So what I'm going to do, from the top here, I'm going to make my hands into a little triangle shape like this. And then I'm just going to gently form this into a triangle. I'm noticing my seam is here. I don't want that on one of the peaks, so I'm actually going to turn this a little bit more. So I'm going to shape my fingers into a triangle. I didn't want that seam to be on one of the ends because it might split again. That's a lot of bending. Okay, so I've got it kind of in a rough triangle shape here. What I want to do is make these three spaces meet, but rather than just pushing them together so they meet at a peak, I want to curve them down so they meet like this. So I don't want them to smush like this because I'll end up with a kind of weird shape in the middle, like a three-legged shape in the middle here. I want it to just touch the tables at these points. So I need to bend this wall on the edge here down. So I'm very carefully going to bend it down with my fingers. I can also use my scraper tool, my rib tool here, and kind of force it down that way if you would like. I find that a little bit of pressure with your fingers, a little bit of, convincing will get the clay to go in, bend down. So these areas are lower than these areas. If I kind of pick it up, you can see how they go in. My legs are the part that sticks out, okay? So I want these to kind of close up. I'm going to gently pinch the feet, again, still pushing these areas down a little bit so that it's touching. I can score those feet up a little bit. I can kind of score here. I can add a little bit of slip if I'd like to. My clay is pretty soft, so I don't think it's super necessary. But I'm just going to close up this area and then smooth across. So these scraps that we saved, I'm going to take a piece of this scrap and I'm going to cut a triangle that's a little bit bigger than this triangle. Just an equilateral triangle like this, a little bit bigger than the hole that I have, okay? I'm still saving my scraps. I might decide to do something with those later, who knows? Once I have my scrap triangle cut out, I'm gonna go back to this angle cutter. It doesn't really matter what side. And I'm just going to cut all three sides of this triangle. Then I'll score all of it and set it down in here, okay? So scoring, slipping, setting it down in that space, okay? Add some slip. Just going to gently, with my fingers, and I probably should have used a little bit larger of a triangle, that's okay. It is important from here out that you don't set it down yet on its feet. These feet need to firm up a little bit. They're still made of very soft clay. If we start slamming this thing down on the table on its feet, those feet are going to collapse and it's going to end up all wobbly and wonky. So we don't want to set it down on its feet. Instead, I'm going to hold it like this or like this so that I have support on the bottom with my hands, but I'm not going to actually set it down or apply any pressure on it, okay? If I do set it down, I'm not touching it. I'm just very gently setting it to the side. So on the inside, if you look at this on the inside, okay, it has three sort of little divots in the feet. So I have a little divot right here where the clay was folded, right? I'm going to patch each of those little divots with just a little ball of clay, and then I'm going to smooth it out. So I am going to take some of our scraps and I'm just going to pinch off a little bit, okay? And then I'm going to take this little triangle bit that I pinched off and kind of form a teardrop shape. I want 3 of these teardrop shapes. I'm going to score the point of the teardrops. I'm going to poke the top of it. I'll put a little bit of slip, a little more slip maybe, a little bit of slip on the end of it. Got a little slip on there. And I'm just going to score up one of those little spaces. Just wiggle a tool around in there. Get my flashlight here. I'm going to take this, little teardrop shape, press it into that space, wiggle my tool around. So I've dropped it into the right space there. I'm going to repeat that with all of the other points, the other feet. So now I have 3 little balls of clay. I'm going to take one of these wooden sculpting tools and I'm going to smooth them out into the wall and onto the bottom of the vessel. I'm not going to do this while it is sitting on the table. I'm going to hold it in my hand and support that bottom. So there we have it. All of the pieces are smoothed out. It looks rougher than it actually is just because you have the 2 different colors of clay that are blending. So from here, we have a straight cylinder, right? We have straight up and down walls. We want to get some curve to our piece, a little bit of body, okay? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna hold it in our hands still, and we're gonna take some tool that's rounded. So either one of these sculpting tools, or I have some wooden kitchen spoons that are up on the wall as well you're welcome to use. But these are going to provide a little bit of pressure on the inside. I'm going to hold it like this in my hand. I'm going to use this tool in kind of a scraping motion on the inside walls to add some pressure. So I'm going to push out from the inside and kind of just swipe. And you can see in the profile there up towards the top of your screen, it's starting to push out the walls a little bit. You're starting to see a little bellow happening, a little bulge here, okay? I'm gonna turn it and I'm gonna repeat that process. So watch over here and you'll start to see some of that pressing out. Start to see that clay pressing out. I'm not gonna do this for the entire length of the pot or the entire height of the pot. I'm just going to keep it maybe to the bottom 2/3 that I'm trying to press out. We're going to kind of do the opposite effect here, so we have a little out and then in and maybe even a little out lip, okay? You might notice a seam that pops back open. Just take your tool, gently use some compression and swipe across that seam to get it to close again. You may also notice some cracking like this. That just means your clay is starting to get a little dry. Take that rib tool, run it across the cracks so I'm not going up and down. If the cracks go up and down, I'm going across them. Very, very gently, I'm just pulling at the surface. Okay? But this is kind of what we're looking for. Is this little bit of curve, a little bit of belly almost on this piece. I'm going to start trying to close in or taper in this top area. So I've expanded this bottom 2/3 probably. I'm going to try and taper in this area, and then I'll end up with a little lip on the top. So you can do this in several ways. I can support my inside and then use my thumb to kind of press in and in a swiping motion and rotate. So I'm pressing in. While I'm pressing in with my thumb here, this area of my hand right here, my fingers, is kind of applying pressure outwards. So I've got support on the inside, but I'm kind of using it to almost put a little flare on that piece, okay? I can also use my rib tool, so I can use my fingers like this, or I can use this rib tool. If your feet are kind of set up enough to where you can set it on your feet, go ahead and do that, and you can use your rib tool. If they're still super soft, maybe wait a few minutes, but this is also helpful if you use that spinning banding wheel because you don't have to stop as often, but my camera is on mine right now. So I can use my rib tool here and almost swipe up the sides in that area while my hand applies pressure right here to make a little flare. Okay, so notice I have not done this area yet. It's still very flat with the little bulge. I have done this area and I've got this nice little dip in here. So I'm going to turn it a little more. I'm going to use that rib tool, bend it like this, and apply just kind of a swiping pressure. Gentle, not too harsh. It's a slow process. So I have a nice little flare, a nice little lip all the way around. I've got some curviness to my shape, okay? I'm gonna go in and just even it out. So if you have to kind of poke and adjust and pinch and pull, you can, but we want it to be nice and smooth and even. I'm going to go on the outside and just very gently kind of clean up some of the marks that were made by my tool as I was working. Gentle hands in this process. My clay is still very soft. Okay. Once I have my outside all cleaned up, I've got all my crumbs off of it, I want this piece to get pretty leather hard. So what I'm going to do is set it in front of the fan or wait until tomorrow to do the rest of the work for this. If I'm waiting until tomorrow, I'm not leaving it unbagged, but I am going to just bag it very loosely. So it'll be as clean as I want it to be, free of cracks, structure is strong, free of crumbs. And then once it is leather hard, I'm going to do the next step to it. So we are going to come back to this piece. While we wait for this to get leather hard in front of the fan, I'm going to show you another technique that you can do to get your slab for this tripod vessel if you choose to do so. Okay. So this guy has been sitting in front of the fan. It's probably still a little softer than I would want it to be, but for the sake of demonstration, you'll be able to see it here. Your friends are these metal loop tools, okay? So these are the biggest friends. Other tools that you might use that would come in handy are the little double-ended cleaning tools, or even some X-Acto knives. So once it gets to that part, I have some X-Acto knives up here. I have 2 different types. If you borrow these, please just make sure that they come back to me. They do not go in your bins, okay? So once this is leather hard, okay, I'm going to be able to take these loop tools and start carving through the layers on your piece, okay? So you get to see all of the hard work that went into it. Now it makes some really cool scraps that you'll find. So again, we use a lot of saving scraps in this project. I'm just kind of scraping through these layers, and it's going from these kind of murky colors to nice crisp, clean lines. Even if you want areas that you want to be nice and bright white clay again, you can use these tools to very, very gently scrape the surface, and it can bring out a lot of that white cleanness to it. You can also, when it's fully leather hard, use the metal rib tools and scrape the surface of it like that. The rubber does it well, the metal does it much better. Now, as far as finishing and quality and all of that, I don't want any super sharp spots. So once you have these cuts in it, let it get even more leather hard. Not quite bone dry, not quite to the point that this is at, right? This is bone dry here. This one is still leather hard. But we want to let it get a little bit drier, and then just run your fingers across and try and find any sharp spots, any areas that might be almost a little dangerous when they're fired. We want to get rid of those, okay? You have to let it be leather hard first. You cannot do it while it is still soft and pliable, because it'll just kind of blend together and get murky and blended, okay? So, short, shallow layers, and slowly carving through those layers into deeper ones. When you are all finished, name goes on the bottom, like so, because I know you'll be like, no, I know what mine looks like. But they're all abstract. I promise once they're fired, they look really different, and it'll be hard to tell them apart. When this red clay is fired, it is this type of color. And then when we put glaze on it, it turns much brighter. So you can kind of see the difference here, how it's going to change when it's fired. It's really beautiful. I hope you guys enjoy this project.